Welcome back, dear viewers. The UN Security Council on Thursday condemned the assaults by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF on El Fasher in Darfur in Sudan, expressing grave concern in a statement at the heightened risk of large-scale atrocities, including ethnically motivated atrocities. A grave situation there in Darfur, in Sudan in general, and of course very tough and deteriorating humanitarian situation. With us now live over the phone is Dr. Ahmed Mostafa, the Professor of International Relations. Now, Dr. Mostafa, it seems that the world now, that things have somehow calmed down in Gaza relatively, of course, although the Israeli occupation continues to kill Palestinian civilians day in and day out and break the truce. But now the eyes of the world are turning to Sudan and discovering, you know, that there is a terrible humanitarian situation there, and the atrocities committed by the RSF do not stop, and the UN Security Council condemning them today. Your comments?
I don't know exactly, because, you know, it is always the double standard of the West. Because if we search behind these, you know, rapid support forces, who are behind them? It is the West. Unfortunately, Israel, and somehow Turkey, unfortunately some Arabic countries that I will never name for the sensitivity of the situation, but it is already in the leaks that we got as researchers. And, you know, we don't know exactly, because I don't know what really, you know, the Security Council will do for illegal force like the RSF. Just to condemn, and that's all, after, you know, the killing of more than 200,000 of innocents and displacement and having refugees for more than 12 million of population of Sudan, and most of them, they are here in Egypt, and the others distributed in South Sudan, which is one of the most poor countries worldwide, as well as in Chad. Also, it is a kind of a disability for Egypt. And why now? Are some powers in the region and internationally want to make disruption and, you know, problems for what's going on in Egypt concerning the inauguration of the Greater Museum, this international event that's taking place in Egypt? And after the successes that Egypt made via the recent days, especially in this month, October, the month of the victory, starting with under signing the ceasefire agreement in Sharm el-Sheikh on 13th, followed by the 1st of November, the inauguration of, you know, the Greater Museum, and the issues in that respect. Or it is also a kind of, you know, trying to make pressures on Egypt, because RSF also, they have a good relations with the regime over there in Ethiopia, and this is one of the other factors that we should discuss. All of these showing you that the Security Council, especially the Western power who are controlling the decision making in the Security Council, doesn't want to make a decisive solution, because especially the United States and Britain and the other powers, they want to just to mediate the conflict, not to settle the conflict. And this is exactly, there is a big difference between mediating or administrating, you know, the conflict, and settling or put an end for the conflict. Because if the West, they wanted to end it right now, they will end it by supporting the power, especially the Sudanese armed forces. Why they are not supporting the Sudanese armed forces? Are they want to get the natural resources that already existed in Sudan, represented in the oil and the gold and the Arab lands? Or, I don't know exactly, all they wanted to make, like, you know, indirect or war by proxy, just to have like a field of confrontation between the West from one side and the new powers from the other side. I mean, even Egypt and China and Russia, Iran, and so on. These are the main elements that we should tackle and shed the light on, in my view.
Now, do you think the Security Council, Dr. Mostafa, will be able to intervene with in Sudan? I mean, there are no risks of vetoes there. Are there any risks of a veto? Because we understand that that much of the international community sees the RSF as a rebel force that is committing war crimes. That's what we understand.
Which part of the Security Council? It is the western part. And the country that's supporting the western part of the Security Council. But the other members, I mean here Russia, and of course China and Algeria, they are not, supposing that this RSF, they are like a legal or revolutionary, power inside Sudan, because it is a legal power.
Yes.
And, this is exactly what happened even in Egypt after 2013, if you remember. And the preparations that USA and the West were making just to make Egypt under tariffs and just to undermine the rule of Egypt to the favor of Israel, of course, and to the favor of some regional powers. They are not, or they want to replace the rule of Egypt. But they proved that, what happened, proved that Egypt is the scale holder, and no one can, deny or disrespect or disregard the role of Egypt, especially in the regional problems. And of course, Egypt is doing a lot of efforts, despite this, double standard, rule of the security.
Yes, I wanted, sorry to interrupt, but because we're running out of time, I want to talk about Egypt's position, because Egypt is against any parallel bodies in Sudan, and it is, of course, for the territorial integrity, the sovereignty, the unity of Sudan, and it supports all legitimate entities, and it is against any militias or those who commit war crimes. And we saw the president today in his activities talking about Sudan with the Eritrean president, talking about Sudan with the Kuwaiti prime minister. Day in and day out, we hear Foreign Minister Abdul Ati talking about Sudan and the importance of preserving the unity of Sudan. So let's talk a little bit, let's wrap up with this, the Egyptian position, and how dangerous is the situation really in Sudan at the moment, especially that you mentioned, that there is an Arab country that you chose not to name. I will not name it either, but it's no secret to anybody. The whole world knows which country that is, so we don't even have to name it, that supports the RSF.
Yeah, the situation in Sudan, as I told you, over the past, 2 years, having like a negative socio-economic repercussions on Egypt, because we have millions of the Sudanese refugees inside Egypt. And according to the existence of the refugees, because Egypt, according to the Egyptian National Council of the Human Rights, we have around 10 million of refugees from around, the world, especially from the African and the Arab countries that already were occurred to, problems or crises or conflicts, including and not limited to Palestine, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, South Sudan, Iraq, Syria, and even Lebanon. Therefore, this, overhead of the figure, because the population of Egypt is around 105 million of population. With extra 10, it's 115. Can you imagine how much this number adding, problems, socioeconomic problems, and surge in the prices and inflation? You can, of course, make like, comparison between, the prices or the rates of the commodities before those refugees and after those refugees coming to Egypt. Therefore, stability in Sudan will just reduce the tension and reduce the socioeconomic pressures on the ordinary citizen in Egypt. Therefore, Egypt trying to make a stability in Egypt always with the legitimacy of the regime that's represented by the forces that is headed by General Al-Burhan in Sudan. That means the Sudanese armed forces, not any other, forces which is, having a good ties or relations with some regional or international, forces for their own interests inside Sudan. I'm going to add something, that those rapid support forces having they have the full control on the gold mines in Sudan. And this is why it is easy for them just to buy, whether directly or illegally or indirectly, the weapons. And the weapons can reach to them via the border of Libya, because we have two conflicted governments, or from Chad, according to the corruption and things like that. But therefore, the continuity of this, and also don't forget that Ethiopia supporting this just to be so stubborn and just to undermine the rule of Egypt and just to control the water and the Nile resources, because you know that the recent days were a lot of conflict, and this Abiy Ahmed started to say some negative statements about Egypt in that respect. Therefore, Ethiopia and Israel playing just in this problem, supported by America and Britain and some Western countries, just to make Egypt most of the time under pressure and trying to carry out its own agenda. However, Egypt, thank God, we have our own alliances, we have our good will, and we have a strong president, a strong Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a strong intelligence, a strong armed forces, which is the most important thing, and we are in the month of October, and we can remind them that. Therefore, no one can, touch or tarnish the rule of Egypt. And yesterday there was the ex-foreign minister, Nabil Fahmy, on one of the Arab TV channels, and he talked, his explanation concerning such point and how the Zionist entity couldn't even, make any or mess with Egypt in that respect, because Egypt having, the direct deterrence versus them in that respect.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Mostafa, Professor of International Relations, as always, for your time and your insight. And that's it for our special coverage. Dear viewers, in less than 5 minutes, we'll be back with our top stories. And don't forget, then when in 5 minutes time, you will rewind your watches by 60 minutes. So it should have been midnight. It won't be midnight, it will be 11 p.m. again. Take two, 11 p.m. take two, because winter time will be applied here in Egypt in the upcoming 4-5 minutes. So get your watches back. 60, you can do it from now. Rewind it by 60 minutes. Please stay with us.